Hello and welcome to another episode of Women Are the Medicine, the show dedicated to sharing the wise words of women. If you are new to us here, welcome. Please remember to like and subscribe if you like what you hear. And if you are a regular listener, thank you so much for your ongoing support. We really do appreciate you. So let's dive into today's dose. My guest is one of the UK's leading experts in functional medicine and nutrition, using the intelligence of nature and science to transform people's health and restore their vitality. She has a specialism in gut health, female hormone health, autoimmunity, and chronic fatigue. Not just that, she's a wellness speaker and educator and co-founder of Mind.Body.Reset, a wellness retreat company running retreats in magical locations. I am delighted to welcome Gemma McGuigan to today's episode. Thank you, Gemma, for being here and for taking time away from your clinic to have this conversation.
Honestly, it's an absolute honour. Thank you so much for the invite.
I'm really excited to talk to you and dive straight in. So let's start with the basics for people who don't know what on earth functional medicine is. What is it? What's it all about?
You know, we have this kind of joke in functional medicine that it's not a great name, to be honest. It's not very sexy, but what is functional medicine? Essentially, functional medicine is a new paradigm of healthcare. And it's one that we're actually trying to get to the root cause of illness. So we've got our current medical system that is incredible in so many ways, and we desperately need to preserve it and support it. But it is a damage control system. And it very much kind of deals with symptom management, okay? Functional medicine is almost like we rip the plaster off and we try to get beneath the surface of the disease, of the symptom, and we try to understand what's at the individual root cause of that person's condition.
I love that. And how do you then go down a treatment path with that person? Is it through medicine or plant pharmacology? What can people expect if they were to come to your clinic with some sort of symptom?
So as a functional medicine practitioner, I don't do anything to do with pharmaceutical-based medicine, okay? So really what we're using is lifestyle medicine. So we're using diet, we're using lifestyle, we're using mindset, we're using herbs, supplements, but we also talk quite deeply about kind of, you know, the nitty-gritty of people's lives, relationships, belief systems, patterns of behavior, try to get to the kind of what's actually driving this person to continue to have this disease mechanism happening.
Oh, it sounds so clear when you say it like that. Instead of going to the doctor and saying, I have this symptom, and them giving you a pill for that, you would actually look at someone's holistic lifestyle and really look at everything, which I think that, you know, GPs always tell you to exercise, eat a little bit better, look after your sleep, but really it goes one in ear and out the other because it's so much easier, I think, as a society to just pop that pill. So
yeah,
how have we got here where our medical system, the allopathic medicine route, is so different from functional medicine? How has the system let us down? How are we so separated from this?
You know, honestly, I think we're just in a state of evolution. I think everybody's trying their best. Okay, everyone is trying their best, and medicine is in a phase of evolution. And I think functional medicine is just the next stage. Okay, the current paradigm we have, you know, has saved many, many lives. But the reality is, the way that our disease is these days, the system is not fit for it anymore. So we used to be predominantly stopping infectious disease, okay? And medicine is incredible for that. But now we have predominantly chronic diseases which are driven by lifestyle choices. And we don't have the magic pills to actually stop that, okay? That requires people to take responsibility. It requires you to make certain choices in life, okay, about diet, about sleep, about who you hang out with, about, you know, what you think. And, who you're in a relationship with, and all these different things has such a massive impact. And I think that what functional medicine do beautifully is they look at the whole person. They look at the whole, what we call systems biology. So that basically means in conventional medicine, it's very departmentalized. If you have a gut problem, you go to the gastro, but he won't talk about your skin problem. Okay, even though your skin problem and your gut problem are totally related. So in functional medicine, we have a systems biology method where we actually look at the whole person, and we understand that each system has a massive impact on each other.
When you explain it like that, it seems absolutely ludicrous that it's so departmentalized, as you described it, that someone wouldn't look at you across the board and is just treating you from that quite narrow perspective, and obviously very specialist. But so you're saying that you're pulling back and looking at the wider, broader view of someone's life.
Yeah. And also I'm always really, really conscious of, really downing the healthcare system we have. There is no doubt it's broken, but there are some incredible people doing incredible things in it. But the problem lies with the fact that it's a population-based medicine, because we had so many people, right? So we have to have, they have to have standards, and they have to have certain ways of treating people. But it is very much pharmaceutical led, okay? And that is, that is the problem. So, we grow up with a mindset and a belief system that other people will fix us, the doctor will fix us, when actually the reality is that health lies at our own doorstep. It actually is our own responsibility. So it's kind of sometimes a bit rubbish to hear that, because it means that you have to really take ownership over the choices that you make. And that sometimes requires some support, some help, because patterns of behavior are very, very entrenched in people.
Yeah, they really are. And you hit the nail on the head there. I think with anything in life, the biggest message that we want to get across on certainly on this show with our guests is that you really do have the power to take ownership of any area of your life that you want to change. And for some reason, health is something that we kind of abdicate that responsibility for to the doctor, to the healthcare system. So I love that this is not necessarily becoming a trend, but it's definitely becoming much more prevalent, that people are hearing about functional medicine, or they're recognizing that nutrition can be so valuable to help alleviate symptoms, but also to address that root cause of whatever it is that you're dealing with.
Yeah. And actually, it sounds too simple, but health truly begins in our homes. And I think the way society is set up these days, it doesn't help us do that. It's not easy for people to eat well. They go into supermarkets, and 80% of those supermarkets are processed food. There's 2 aisles that might be whole food. The fact that moms and dads have to work so hard, there's, I get it. There's a lot going against us. And it actually requires you to really kind of make massive effort to try to be healthy. It's not easy. For example, I've got a young boy who plays basketball, and he goes out after basketball, and, there's nowhere for him to get decent food. So they end up then just eating rubbish food because they don't have a choice. And I think societal infrastructure is not helping us. Our broken food system is not helping us. But I'm kind of, I'm quite kind of conscious of not being the victim in it as well, because the other side of the coin is we actually do have the ability to create health in our homes if we prioritize it, if we make it the priority for us.
Yes, absolutely. And how on earth did you land in this path, land in this role? Because is it something that you studied later on in life, or was it introduced to you at quite an early age?
So I was really, really fortunate. I grew up in a household where my mum, she was a Reiki master, an aromatherapist, a color therapist. And so she kind of, in darkest, deepest Northern Ireland, that was kind of unusual. And, she basically treated our health and illnesses completely differently than any other person I knew. So, for example, instead of taking us to doctors, she would take us to a homeopath. And we actually went to this every, 3-4 months. We'd go to Belfast, which was a big journey, and we'd go to see this incredible homeopath called Jan de Free. And lots of people will know Jan de Free because he's super famous in that world. Sadly, he's passed now, but he would come over to Ireland, to Northern Ireland, a couple of times a year, and my mum would just book us in. So from very early on, I experienced somebody looking at the whole of me, okay, treating me with herbs, treating me with supplements, talking about my mindset, my stress levels, my sleep. It was just, he was incredible. And actually, he was the first person that really I truly understood about the power of the therapeutic relationship. Because I would walk into his clinic and I would instantly feel like I was getting healing from him. Like my nervous system was being soothed because he just had my back, he knew me. So I was just so inspired by him. And my mum was incredible. I mean, she used to just, anything any ailments, there would always be an essential oil solution. She would cook really good food. She was very, very prominent in the kitchen. She was busy herself as a teacher, but she would do lots of cooking. And, I feel really, really blessed to have had that kind of upbringing, because really for me, I always had a belief and a knowledge that we had the power to heal ourselves ultimately.
Wow. What an incredible core belief to have at a young age.
I know, and that kind, that led me. I actually ended up going to university and studying environmental science. But you ask any of my friends, I was always the one with like milk thistle, giving everyone milk thistle before we went on a night out or something like that. So it was in me from the very beginning. But when I left university, I just wanted to travel, and I ended up in Australia. And Australia was incredible for me because it actually was very much fundamental and part of my own healing. And also just to be warmed up, having lived my life in Northern Ireland, it was just like so healing to be warmed up from the inside out. But I actually just started to see so many more kind of like health providers, so naturopaths and nutritionists, and they were kind of fairly common then. And I'd never heard of anything like that back home or even in Liverpool where I went to university. So I started to go to a naturopath, and she was, really very, very inspirational. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved the idea that you could use nature to heal somebody. But, I was traveling. I didn't think about it really as a career or anything then. I actually got into fashion weirdly in Australia and was doing that for a while, and then came back, did it in England. And then, to cut a long story short, when I fell pregnant with my first boy, I was back in Australia and I did a childbirth education course, which was called She Birth. And it was incredibly holistic. And to be honest, to me, it was like a life course. And I was just so, again, it brought up all these kind of real foundational kind of health principles about food having an impact on birth outcomes and things like that. So I was just, I had an incredible birth, I believe, down to that course. And I just wanted to shout from the rooftop. So I actually trained to become a childbirth educator. And I did that in Australia and in London for quite a while, which was amazing. And that just got me really, really curious about, okay, if food and how you eat during your pregnancy has such a massive impact on birth outcomes, what is the impact on other people's health concerns? How far can we go with food? And that's when I joined the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and I did a course there. And, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my husband, because I knew there were so many reasons for me not to do this course, right? And I just thought, no, I'm going to do it. So I went and I signed up without telling anybody. And it was the best decision I ever made. So I did that course, which was naturopathic nutrition. And then I just got the bug. After that, I then did further education with the Institute of Functional Medicine in America. And that's when I got my full certification, of which there's kind of only really 100 of us in the UK that really have that level of certification in functional medicine. So yeah, that's got me to here.
Fantastic. I love that you followed that hunch, even though like on paper it was like, this is risky, this isn't right. I think
Yeah.
so often as women, little aside here, we're taught not to trust that inner voice.
Yes.
We're taught to
Yeah.
disbelieve it and
Mm.
actually, again, abdicate that responsibility of someone else saying, is this the right thing that I should do? But when you
Mm.
get that message, you just know,
Mm.
yes, dive in.
Yeah, I felt like it was a purpose. I really knew it was my purpose. And I almost didn't even want anyone else to have an opinion on it. It was just what I wanted to do.
Yes.
So anyway, thank goodness my husband supported me, and here I am.
I love it. And just tell us about some of the chronic illnesses that you're seeing at your clinic. What's the most common sort of ailment that you're seeing? What's the modern day ailment that you're seeing in the clinic?
I have a real varied client base, everything from kids to I have a lot of teenagers on my books at the moment. I see a lot of autoimmunity, a lot of thyroid issues, a lot of gut issues. A lot of people come to me with IBS for 30 years. A lot of chronic fatigue, mystery illnesses. I'm kind of known for mystery illnesses. They've been to every doctor, every consultant. They've tried medications and they're not getting better. What is wrong with them? Um, Teenagers these days have it really tough, really tough. I get a lot of females with, hormonal issues, particularly teenage girls. I get a lot of women, with perimenopausal issues, menopausal issues. And I get a lot of children who, have just things like recurrent infections, just never well, always sick. So I have a real varied kind of array but really I try to focus on kind of immune, gut, hormones, and brain health. Those are kind of my pillars that I feel like I have a level of expertise in.
Okay, I love this. Let's go down one of those routes. Let's take
Mm.
autoimmune disease.
Mm.
Give us some examples of what an autoimmune disease is and how it might have manifested in the body. What could a root cause be? I'm really curious about this because one of my family members has rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
So as an
Okay.
autoimmune.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
really curious as to what the root cause could be for her. How would you test? How would you take someone through a pathway?
So autoimmunity is really tricky because it is so individual. And this is one of the reasons why population-based medicine, i.e. our current medical system, cannot cope with it. So in a functional medicine setting, we really dive deep into the history. What has been going on from the beginning? Where is the vulnerabilities? Is there any potential genetic predisposition? Because for autoimmunity to happen, there are three things that have to really be present. One is a genetic predisposition. Two is intestinal permeability, otherwise known as leaky gut. Okay. And in today's society, with our toxins that we're exposed to and food system, I mean, who doesn't have leaky gut, right? And number three is a trigger. Okay. Something that has tipped the immune system into a state of disarray, essentially. So for something like rheumatoid arthritis, we have fairly good science to support that it may be either viral or bacterial. And that is often the case for other autoimmune conditions as well. For example, another really common one is Hashimoto's. So Hashimoto's is autoimmune of the thyroid. Now, again, we have fairly robust science to say that gluten sensitivity can be the trigger, as well as Epstein-Barr virus can also be the trigger. So, we use what we know now, but the reality is functional medicine, like all medicine, should be in constant evolution. So what we learned about autoimmunity, when I was doing my studies kind of 10 years ago, is now different to what we know now. So it's constantly reading the literature and making sure, as kind of like a functional medicine community, we're sharing this information so that we can action upon it for these clients, because we don't know everything. And this is the real humility with functional medicine, is we don't know everything. And it's really important to say that, because when you are taking on a client, I am not there to fix them. We're not going to that same kind of pattern of behavior that modern medicine has, where I'm giving you a drug and I'm saying I can fix you. I'm saying, let's explore this together. That person is a full participant in this relationship, this kind of therapeutic relationship. So we work together. I use my expertise. I use my, ability to be able to read the current science, and we go from there. Now, we are quite lucky in functional medicine because we have access to the most incredible tests, really, really advanced testing. The problem is it's expensive, okay? So this is, and what you've got to understand is that a lot of the science that functional medicine is based on may be quite early days, okay? But to get into population-based medicine, it needs 30 to 40 years of that science, okay? For population-based medicine, you can kind of understand it, but still it's frustrating. So basically we are looking to use those tests that we can, we can access, if that person can financially do that, which not everyone can. And those tests give us indicators. So there's an incredible company called Cyrex, an American company, and I use them a lot for autoimmunity because they help me identify the triggers. Okay, what is the immune system overreacting to at this current moment? Now, we don't know if that is the actual one that caused that person to have Hashimoto's in the first place, but we can see from the test results that the body is having a massive immune reaction to it, and therefore it would make sense for us to try and calm that reaction down, to see if we can get autoimmunity into remission. And that's the key with autoimmunity, to get it into remission. So it requires a real holistic look at that individual. It requires us to really try to identify how is their nervous system. If the nervous system is in constant fight or flight, you are never going to heal. So that is at the top of the agenda.
What kind of tests are you talking about? Is it blood tests? Is it food allergy tests? What do you do as a...
So that example, the Cyrex, is a blood test. And so we test basically pathogens, so disease-causing microbes. We test chemicals, heavy metals, that kind of thing. We test foods. Those are kind of like the top three things that we first go to, okay? And what we're doing is a blood test, and we're testing the immune system reactivity to these certain antigens, which are part of these kind of food, chemicals, pathogens, okay? But then there's other things to consider. For example, we might have to test mold. There's so many mystery illnesses and autoimmune conditions that are often triggered by mold, exposure to mold and mycotoxins within the body. So sometimes it's like looking down a rabbit's hole. How far do we want to go down? But by the time some people get to me, they're desperate, and they're just actually desperate for another way. And I think, there's two kind of arms to functional medicine. There's this incredible kind of prevention arm that I believe is really what we need to really get into population-based medicine, okay? But then there is the other arm where we actually really are truly peeling away the layers of the onion for this individual to try to get to the root biochemistry of dysfunction, what's going on with that individual.
You sound so passionate about this. What is it that you love about your work?
Well, I am passionate about it because I see it work. And I'm not saying it's easy. It really, well, I don't even want to put that out there into the universe, to be honest, because sometimes when I have a new client, I set an intention that the solution is with ease and grace, because I really believe that our words and our mindset is just so fundamental in that person's healing. So if I kind of go in with, oh, it's really hard, this is going to be really hard, then, well, it's going to be really hard. But it does require enormous commitment. It does require enormous commitment because I'm asking people to change patterns of a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And that can be very difficult. And I can't always do that by myself, by the way. I do refer them to some of my colleagues who are much more experienced than I am in, neuro-linguistic reprogramming. Like I've got a few people who really kind of specialize in that and really help me with that and help my client be able to essentially change the patterns of behavior so that my plan really sticks and works for them. Mm. When people have been sick for a very long time, they can be in a victim energy and a suffering energy. Sometimes we need to get them out of that energy to actually move things forward.
What effect does that mood, that demeanor, that melancholy or that victim consciousness, how does that actually affect us physiologically?
Well, I think the body hears the mind. I think, well, I know for a fact that it also works the other way. So our nervous system is being affected by our thoughts, okay? And our nervous system then adapts our biology accordingly. So it's kind of quite simple when you look at it that way. So there's no doubt about it. The power of thought has a massive input on our biology.
Mm. It makes me think about enhanced neuroplasticity, which is obviously my field for working with microdoses. Psychedelics are really powerful to help create those new neural pathways when it comes to behavioral change, because those patterns can be so stuck.
Oh, and this is where psychedelics is so exciting. And, it's an area that I don't know a huge amount about, but I have to say I am there in the background cheering it on because it really is all about changing those neural pathways.
Absolutely. And it's doing exactly what you're doing, which is empowering someone to become the person that they know they can be.
Yeah. I also think there is I think we have unlearned or we have forgotten how we can innately heal. I think we have just forgotten that as a race kind of thing. And I understand why, because the conditioning of, someone else needs to fix you, the doctor will fix you, that's, you're broken, that kind of, those kind of belief systems that run through the majority of the population. But, we only have to look at, for example, if you fall and cut your knee and you actually witness your body without any conscious thought healing over a period of 4 days. I mean, that is miraculous, right? That is miraculous, but that is what we are capable of. But we just don't know how to, bring it into our lives and really make it happen for ourselves. So it's understanding that the body has this innate healing capacity. One of my jobs mainly is to remove the burden from that. That's really my main role. What's getting in the way of the body's innate healing mechanisms? And I really see that as my kind of job.
And it's interesting that you say we've lost that knowledge, that understanding. Because as much as functional medicine, the way you're describing it, with its more sophisticated testing, etc., is new, it's not really, is it?
No, absolutely not. And I think sometimes as functional medicine practitioners, we can almost slightly get carried away with the testing because, there is nothing quite like, when you do functional medicine, you're probably quite analytical. To go through all the kind of education, it's very analytical. And, so we love a whole load of data and figures, and, and being able to kind of compare before and after. And, but actually the reality is we are taught as functional medicine practitioners to do all of this without those fancy tests. It's just very helpful. It can be very helpful and can get people there quicker. But absolutely 100%, at the heart of functional medicine are very, very simple concepts of self-healing, prevention, nourishment, sleep, lifestyle, relationships, movement.
Yes. And I think what's becoming more apparent to us as women is that we know this in our bones. We've been cut off from this knowledge, but women were the original healers.
Yeah.
Women held, whether they were called, the midwives and the witches, they held that knowledge of how to work with the land and nature and nature's medicine.
Yeah.
And a lot of that will have included mindset without them even really knowing it, but the power of the beliefs and the potions. And I don't want to reduce what you're doing to witchcraft, but there's something that feels quite ancient about working with what we have on this planet, these beautiful medicines.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I always think that dandelion is the perfect example of that. It is a common weed, in inverted commas, that is everywhere. It's in every front garden, back garden, and we spray chemicals to get rid of it. And actually, this incredible weed holds the most incredible array of medicinal properties. And it is popping up through the earth to say to us, here you are. You need this, but yet we're spraying it, we're getting rid of it, we're plucking them out. We see them as weeds. And I think sometimes when you just look at what the earth is giving us, then it's, we are ultimately kind of an expression of our environment. Okay. So it's definitely the women, they knew the land, they knew what the land could offer us. And I think women with their female sex hormones allows us to actually be the nurturers, the carers. We were the kind of fixers. And that then led us to look around to our ecosystem, our environment. What can we use in our environment to support our families, to help us be healthy and well and recover and repair?
And we held that knowledge and then we passed it down through generations. And then
Exactly.
it got cut off.
Yeah, then they got cut off because then we got silenced, we got silenced. We were told we were mad.
Yes, of course, because it didn't agree with the rational scientific knowledge of the day.
I still feel like some people think I'm mad. But I'm kind of okay with that because, I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah. Own it.
Exactly.
And I'm just thinking about my ancestors, the female ancestors particularly. And I'm right in the middle of going through perimenopause, and I'm thinking to myself, how on earth did they cope with this? Did they even have it in the same way, these extreme symptoms, of which, if anybody's Googled perimenopausal symptoms, there are a gazillion of them. So I can't leave the show without talking to you about this area, which is your area of expertise, women's health and hormones. What do we need to know if we're in the perimenopause? How can we support ourselves to make it easier?
So perimenopause is, everyone arrives at perimenopause with different health and also with different history. And that's a really important component to understand. But because of the changes in perimenopause, it's like the big revealer. It is almost like our body is telling us what needs to be healed. Okay, so things are coming up for us, whether it's anxiety, whether it's other health issues, and it's presenting. So it's like the big revealer. Perimenopause is the big revealer. Okay, now I am so passionate about female health and how I believe our medical system are not really doing a great job with us women. It is over medicalized from the very beginning. Okay, when our teenagers start to go into puberty and have their periods, it is a very over medicalized kind of system. And we also, as females, do not understand our hormones. We just don't, we haven't been educated. We don't know how to harness them. We don't know what is normal. Okay, we don't know. We think that actually period pains and, is normal. Period pains are not normal. And also we think that suffering is normal for us women. But that is not normal, okay? It is just that we have not been educated. We have not been mentored into our incredible hormones that are actually a gift. If you have 30 to 40 years of an ovulatory cycle, okay, that means a normal period cycle, 30 to 40 years where you're ovulating pretty much every month, that has not been stopped by the oral contraceptive pill or by a coil or something like that, that is a gift. Because every single cycle has given you these incredible hormones that are actually planting the seeds for your longevity, for your long-term health of your heart, of your bone, of your brain, of your breast. Okay. So we don't know that as a 15-year-old girl, do we? We don't know that as a 15-year-old girl, if we take a oral contraceptive pill because we have irregular periods or we have heavy bleeding, that pill actually completely flatlines all your production of your natural female hormones. And that has a consequence, because around that time, we need those hormones, particularly estrogen, for the mineralization of female bones. So if a child is on the oral contraceptive pill at age 15, 16, 17, she has missed out on that very, very vital part of her physiology. And that can show up as osteoporosis in later life. Okay, so back to perimenopause, it is the big revealer. I believe perimenopause is an opportunity to listen. What is coming up? Okay, what is really coming up? I believe that we need to have support during that time. I don't actually think we can do it on our own. And I think it is a time to really start to prioritize. The first hormone that we lose during perimenopause is progesterone. And progesterone is our beautiful, calming, nurturing hormone. It elicits GABA in our brain, which is our calming neurotransmitter. So it is the first to go, which is really sad, because we start to reduce the ovulation. So we have cycles that we may not be ovulating, and we need ovulation to produce progesterone. So then we become estrogen dominant. Okay, and estrogen is a beautiful diva, but my goodness, when she is kind of ruling the roost, she can cause all sorts of problems. So we have this kind of real imbalance of these two beautiful hormones. But it is the most important thing to understand about perimenopause is it is not forever. It is, you are in a transition, and whatever you can do to ease that transition, you must do it. Okay. Now there's a big, big movement towards HRT these days in that perimenopausal years. And I am absolutely not in any way anti-HRT. In fact, I think for some women it is actually life-saving. But I do believe, like with most population-based medicine, there's flaws at the moment. So when you take HRT during that perimenopausal years, you may be throwing fuel onto a fire, more estrogen onto the estrogen dominant situation. And then it is bumpy, 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 bumpy until the estrogen starts declining, and then you start to settle. It's like, okay. But I have seen with many women that real, load of estrogen can be problematic. It can be really problematic. It can lead to fibroids, it can lead to all sorts of things. So, we definitely need a little bit more personalization with the idea of HRT in our society. Not all of us clear it as well as others from our system. So that's something to consider as well. Yeah. But I do see perimenopause as a massive opportunity to start really listening to our body, what it's presenting to us, because those are the things that we need to get support with.
Oh my goodness, you said so much there that I want to pick up on, and I'm going to do my best to get those nuggets. First of all, you calling the perimenopause the big reveal has just lit up an enormous light bulb for me. Not just for me, but witnessing other friends as well. Like they hit a certain age, early 40s, mid 40s, and then they'll get an ADHD diagnosis. Didn't realize that was there because the symptoms have exacerbated. I myself thought I would breeze through perimenopause because I was healthy and had a good lifestyle. But actually, I've had really challenging symptoms. Obviously all of the hot flashes and like that debilitate me and just make me feel like my head's going to explode. I've developed a thyroid nodule, which I think is to do with all the hormone imbalances. And then I was trying HRT and it was for a while making it fantastic. And then actually, I think just as you've described, my estrogen was spiking up and down.
Yeah.
So I needed to just pull back and get some support and speak to someone who knew what they were talking about and just refine my HRT and also really look at my nutrition. So I've dropped gluten, I've dropped caffeine. I'm really particular with my supplements to support my thyroid health. But oh my goodness.
Yeah.
There's so much there. It can feel overwhelming.
Absolutely. And when you lose that progesterone, everything feels overwhelming, but that is even a lot, right? So, I love to hear what you have done because, everybody thinks of perimenopause and menopause just about the hormones, just about the sex hormones. It's not just about the sex hormones. It's about the thyroid. It's about the metabolism. It's about the adrenal health. The severity of menopausal symptoms is a direct relation to how well your adrenals are functioning. And I'll tell you why. When your ovaries reduce its function by about 90% in menopause, right? So it reduces its ability to produce estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. We then rely on our adrenals, which are two glands that sit on top of our kidneys. They're our kind of stress response glands. We rely on them to take over the production of these hormones, but in a very, very small amount because we no longer need big amounts for fertility. We just need small amounts for brain, breast, bone, and heart. Okay. But by the time women get to menopause, their adrenals are so tired. And, when I actually do some kind of testing around this, it is unbelievable. The function of the adrenals have been almost like very, very low, very, very low. And then, of course, they can't pick up the baton from the ovaries. So then women fall off a cliff hormonally and they end up getting, really severe symptoms. And I think, again, when we look at society, we don't have a society that nurtures women in this time. We all end up at menopause kind of burnt out. And this is why so many women are struggling, to be honest.
You've just lit another light bulb in my head because all throughout my 20s and 30s, when I was having acupuncture for various things, usually an injury like a knee injury or a back pain, the practitioner would say, "Oh, you've got quite weak kidneys and adrenal function." We got, but it's just stuck in my head.
Yeah.
What causes your adrenals the batteries to go down?
In a simple word, stress, okay? Chronic stress. So our body is phenomenal. It is completely adapting constantly. So we are so resilient and so adaptable. But in today's society, when we have so many stresses coming at us, the adrenals are working very hard to really kind of support us and cope with all of that. But at some point in time, over many, many years, the adrenal function will adapt in a way to protect you, to slow you down. Because, of course, adrenal health is all about survival. So it will slow down because it's almost like a negative feedback. It's trying to slow you down so you can't do all the stuff that you've been doing that's got you here in the first place. The thing about estrogen and progesterone is really interesting. So they are they're kind of like our stress buffering hormones. So when we have them in full amounts, we have them in full amounts almost so that we can put everybody else in front of ourselves and prioritize other people. It's really like a mothering thing, right? So we had this kind of innate mothering thing where we put us at the bottom of the barrel and everybody else ahead of ourselves. But when we actually start to lose those hormones, right, we actually realize what we've been doing. We've been putting ourselves at the bottom of the barrel. And actually, because we don't have the stress buffering effects of these hormones anymore, bang, all this stuff starts to become revealed to us, relationship issues, past traumas, emotional suppression, all of this stuff that we have just bedded down because frankly, we do not have time and energy to deal with it. But the minute those hormones kind of reduce, up it comes. So it's such a, I find perimenopause and menopause a deeply exciting time. I'm not saying that it's not tough, but it can be unbelievably transformative for many women.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's highlighted for me because I was getting really low on energy as well, and going to the gym and then having to come home and go to bed because then I was like, my
Yeah.
goodness, energy, exercising at the gym used to energize me, and something that I loved so much and it was a big part of my identity, I just had to shelve for a while and find
Yeah.
something that was more restorative. And I think you're right. I've been listening to my body in new ways. It's not about being in shape because I want to look good. Obviously, that can still be important, but it's really about tuning into those energy levels. And I have this rule, whereas if I wake up and my energy levels are like below 50%, if they're like, oh my God, I have a completely different trajectory on my day.
Yeah.
I cancel meetings. I don't force myself to do things that I don't want to do. Whereas before I probably would have plowed on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're being deeply compassionate to yourself, and that's actually what is required. And I think, you asked kind of how can we get through perimenopause? And I do actually think that for every person it's going to be different. But my main piece of advice is to listen to what's coming up, to really listen to what's coming up. Is it anxiety? Is it lack of fatigue? Is it weight gain? Is it depression? Whatever it is, and get the support you need. Almost invest in that over and above the haircuts, the facials, all of those things that, don't get me wrong, are so lovely. But at this present moment, the investment needs to be put into you understanding what you can do to make this transition easier. And I would say, really, really invest in understanding what are your stressors and is there anything that you can do to either balance that with some lovely, nervous system support, whether it's yoga or walking walking in nature, whatever it is for you, playing an instrument, singing. It can be so many different things for so many different people, but you need that balance and you need rest. Nobody rests. And you do need rest. And there's one question in my intake form that I ask people, and every single person says the same thing. I say, do you feel guilty when you rest? And everybody says yes. Everybody, which I find fascinating because we're not mentored into resting. Resting's not about succeeding. We just need to succeed and keep go. So I think we need to rest.
Yes, we wear that attitude of just keep going as a badge of honor, and actually it's not doing us any favors.
No. And I do actually hear, and I sometimes catch myself doing it as well. I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. And it's like, okay, you're so busy. Well, this is not like a really, this is not like a really amazing thing. This is actually, okay, a moment to go, is this busy working for you? Or is it not working for you? Is it helping you thrive or is it not helping you thrive? Because you're only going to be able to do that for so long.
Yes,
right?
that saying I'm busy is a red flag for me. When I say that, or I think about saying that, usually I catch myself before the act now. I go,
Me
oh,
too.
I'm in that place. I try not to use that word, but it is an indicator that I'm hurtling down the road, and at some point I'm going to crash.
Overwhelm. Yeah, exactly. I think in perimenopause, now I'm obviously my best kind of case study because I am also in perimenopause. So, and have, I have never had the oral contraceptive pill, and so I've been fortunate enough to have regular cycles all of my life, which has been, I feel at this age a gift actually that I kind of didn't even know about. I didn't even know about how much of a gift regular cycles are. So my idea for my clients is to keep that cycle going for as long as we can, okay? Because it is like money in the bank. So I use certain herbs to try to keep my cycle going, okay? And I had a really good experiment over the summer holidays. So sometimes when I take all the summer holidays off, and I sometimes give myself a bit of a rest of my supplements, okay? Because I think that's also quite a good idea. So I stopped my hormone herbs, and from having a 29-day cycle for like the last 6 months, which I'm utterly kind of really happy with and delighted with, I had a 21-day cycle. And it just came and it hit me, and I was like, wow, okay, so those herbs are keeping my cycle steady and regular. And so I got straight back on them the minute I came back. And I think there's a lot to be said. Nature holds so much support for us females. It really, really does.
I didn't realize that would keep us kind of feeling more energized and younger to keep that ovulation phase going. I thought it was like try and get through perimenopause as quickly and as graciously as possible.
So those sex hormones equals vitality. That's not to say that when we don't have them, we don't have any vitality, but it's there's a transition to be had. Okay, this transition happens from perimenopause into menopause, but definitely, with any of my kind of clients, my kind of aim is to keep that cycle going for as long as we can, whilst I'm working on the adrenal health. And that's crucial because for them to have a easy transition to menopause, their adrenals need to be happy, sturdy, resilient.
Yes. What are those magic herbs that you'd like to
Well,
take?
there's a whole host. So one of the kind of, have you heard of Agnus castus?
Yes, I have.
So it's also called Vitex. I think this is, I don't know, I think most women should be on this because it doesn't increase progesterone, but it actually has an effect on the signaling between the brain and the ovaries for progesterone. So it does ultimately, at roundabout, have an effect on progesterone levels. Now, progesterone is our first one that we lose because of ovulation. So I would say that, really that is a kind of a must. The other thing that's really important to consider in perimenopause is when we are estrogen dominant, we are, it's a fiery hormone, it's a diva hormone. So there are certain herbs that are really helpful in actually getting rid of the estrogen. Okay, so we are rebalancing the estrogen. We can actually do that through our food, though, as well. There are so many foods that are so fundamental during that perimenopausal stage. For example, are cruciferous vegetables. So all those kind of sulfury vegetables, we need to aim for at least 2 cups a day because the sulforaphans that are in those vegetables, we have tons of science to show that they help to clear our estrogen out of the liver. So that's a really easy thing to do. Flaxseed is another one that is like just gold for the hormone health. Broccoli sprouts, I find that broccoli microgreens are full of these sulforaphans, so they're going to help with the clearance of estrogen. Because really, in perimenopause, it's the difference between the estrogen and the progesterone that's the problem. Okay, it's that estrogen is dominant to progesterone because for the last 40 years or 30 years, these beautiful hormones have been in balance in this kind of beautiful rhythm through the 28-day cycle. And now they're like that. And that's what causes a lot of the symptoms.
I didn't realize that you could bring your estrogen levels down with nutrition and that would actually help to balance out those
Yeah,
hormones.
so I would almost say that, there's estrogen is almost like a big we could do a whole hour on estrogen itself. But in today's world, we actually get exposed to estrogen through many, many different ways. We get it from our water. We get it from our different meats, because they feed the animals hormones to fatten them up. So we get them through meats. We get them through plastic bottles. We get them through makeup products. So we are actually being exposed to estrogen a lot. Okay. Then we have our ovaries producing estrogen. Then we have, maybe someone's on the oral contraceptive pill, being exposed to synthetic estrogen. Then we have HRT, being exposed to that estrogen. So it's all coming at us. But how well is that individual actually getting rid of their estrogen? That we don't know. Well, I mean, this is why one of the reasons why I love functional medicine is because I can test that, and I do know how well or not well someone is getting rid of that with estrogens. But that is really important for us to understand as females. It really, really is.
I love that you are working on that level of detail with people.
Yeah, and it's deeply empowering because, in functional medicine, yes, we are testing, we're identifying, but primarily we're educating. Yeah, because we want to empower that individual to take control of their health, and that's a real fundamental component of functional medicine.
And presumably, if that happens to enough people, then they're gonna pass that knowledge down to their children.
Yes.
And create another wave rather than it breaking the pattern. They're going to reestablish that understanding and that knowledge like you had when you were growing up.
Absolutely. And I honestly hope that someday our young females really, whether it's something in school or whether it's something in our communities, I don't know how it's going to happen, but we need to help our young females understand their female hormones and how to harness it, and the beautiful benefits that these incredible hormones are going to give that girl throughout her life. Okay. And that when she has symptoms, it's her body's way of speaking to her to say there is an imbalance here. Don't ignore it. Don't suppress it. Let's find out. And she'd be able to access support to be able to understand how can she rebalance those hormones.
I wish I had someone like you when I was 14, 15, 16 to help me with hormones. I went on the pill, I think, when I was 16, and probably was on it for about 13 to 14 years, maybe even longer. And I remember thinking that my periods were an irritation and that I didn't want them. You're just trying to get rid of them. And actually, to me now, that just seems so sad that we're kind of taught by society that it's something unwanted and an annoyance and it's painful and you just kind of have to cope with it. And not that it's this wonderful, miraculous time of our lives.
Yeah. And I understand why girls go on the pill. I really do. But it is not a solution most of the time.
Yeah, there are other ways, which hopefully through your work, people will start to understand. So let's say that someone is listening to this podcast and they're going, my God, this sounds so fascinating. I really want to take charge of my health in this way. They don't want to, they don't want to go to the doctors, or they've perhaps been down that route. Where do they start? Do you have some way for people to be guided towards what they can do in the first instance?
So this is kind of my work in progress. So first of all, I have a one-to-one clinic, but not everyone can afford to go down that road. Okay, so that's a big thing for me. One of my passions and purposes in life is to try to get this content out in a more affordable, accessible way. I'm not 100% sure really what the entire answer to that is yet, so I'm kind of on a bit of a trial at the moment. So aside from my one-to-one clinic, I'm trying to do mini masterclasses. I'm trying to, off the back of those masterclasses, record the content and put them in as mini courses, which I'm about to launch in January. So I'll have a whole host of, mini courses that you can pay, £45 for and kind of learn yourself and have my expertise and my kind of first steps. And I really hope I really hope that's a good thing for people. Okay, so for example, if it's perimenopause, if it's menopause, if it's teenage periods, if it's frequent infection, I want to be able to have something to be able to give to someone to go, right, I'm going to start here. Okay. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to create almost like almost like little I'm just about to launch them, like symptoms and solution charts, so that give you kind of like ideas of what to eat, what to do, what herbs, what supplements you could try. Now none of this is personalized, and none of this can be advice for the individual, because of course I don't know the individual, but at least it gives them from an expert somewhere to start, okay? A guide, a path. And then if they feel like they need the one-to-one support for a bit, then of course I'm there for them. I do give a lot of content away on my Instagram. I really hope that people kind of benefit and use that as much as they can. Recipes, as well as trying to get people to understand certain aspects of health. Obviously I do my retreats, but that's just a total joy. It's a complete immersion. I run it with another woman. She's an energy psychologist, and it's just a complete joy of that body, mind, spirit reset. So yeah, that's kind of the ways that you can access me at the moment.
I can't wait for those mini courses. They sound fantastic.
I know, I've just got to, make some time, but that is definitely, I really hope that they are useful to people.
I think so much of your content is useful, and I'm really glad that you mentioned Instagram. And of course, we'll put your handle in the show notes so people can follow you immediately. The one that stuck in my mind most recently is your daily routine, like what you're doing in the morning. Do you want to just run through that with us?
So I kind of thought, Instagram's like it's just such a head bender, isn't it? Like, what is useful for people? And sometimes I really, it's a fine line, Instagram, isn't it? So what is valuable? So I thought, well, maybe it might be inspirational to know, what things are kind of like non-negotiables for me, what certain things I do that I really feel help me. And so one of them was I have electrolytes every day. And I think of electrolytes like the spark plugs of the body. So, and we lose electrolytes really easily. We lose them mainly from sweating, and so it's actually really, really good to try and kind of get them back in. Now, our water used to have really good levels of electrolytes, but sadly, kind of no longer. So I do have electrolytes in my water. I'll start a day with a big glass of water and just put some electrolytes in it. But you don't even have to buy electrolytes. You can actually make your own electrolyte drink. So you can make it in a combination of like a really good pinch of good quality salt with lime juice. That together is like magic electrolyte drink. So that's a good little tip. The other thing I do is have you heard of chicory drink? Okay, yes. So I have that because I absolutely love it. I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm kind of often envious of people who drink coffee, because I think, it's a really good bitter. And if you drink it kind of not too much, then I think it can be really beneficial for the body. But I don't really like it. So I have the chicory drink, which I love, which I know is fantastic for my microbiome, my gut microbiome, and also for my liver. So that's another little good tick on the day. The other thing I do is I have a tablespoon full of cold pressed flaxseed oil, because again, for hormones and hormonally, it's a really beautiful tonic. So I love to do that. And then the other one I think I said was, oh yeah, I'm obsessed, absolutely obsessed with microgreens. I mean, literally, I am so lucky. I have a microgreen grower in Hampshire, just literally like 15 minutes down the road from me, who delivers these incredible little microgreens that are pretty much like on average 40% greater nutrient density than the big plant. So you're getting such a hit of nutrients through these tiny, tiny little plants. And I just get 5 pots a day. I mean, shamelessly, I could absolutely grow them myself, but there's just certain things that you just have to outsource. And I absolutely love supporting, people who are doing amazing things.
Yes. Talk to me about the microgreens. Are they like cress or?
They're a little bit like cress. they're exactly like Chris, but this guy, he grows like broccoli, radish, coriander. I mean, God, all sorts of different things, and they're all pretty much those cruciferousy, sulfury kind of veg that I know are so supportive for hormone health. So I just try to have like half a pot a day, pretty much.
Fantastic. Well, we'd love to share his details with our
Yeah, I'd
listeners
be
as
happy
well. And
to.
like you say, support local businesses,
Yeah.
people doing wonderful things.
There's also, if you can't get them raw, you can actually buy them freeze dried from another company, which I will give you their details as well. That's another really good one. You just kind of take a tablespoon and put it over your salad or over your soup or your vegetables or whatever.
I love it. Gemma, thank you so much. I feel like I could talk to you and ask you questions all day. You're just such a font of incredible knowledge, and I love how you've made it really accessible for us. And there's some really powerful messages in this conversation today about what women can do if they have younger daughters and what women can do for themselves during this, well, throughout any age, whatever, however old they're listening, but certainly with this trickier period of menopause, which hopefully they will now see as this slightly reframed transitional period that is going to show them how to love their body more and how to heal themselves, like show what's needed. You called it the great revealer or the big revealer, which I love. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
So Gemma, we have a closing tradition on this show by asking you the same question as we asked everybody else, which is, if you were made Madam President for just one day and you got to implement one change globally, what would you do and why?
Oh, I have so many. I have so many. Okay. I suppose my top one, which will be a very unpopular choice, will be that I will get rid of sugar and processed food, because I truly believe it is at the heart and the guts of so many chronic health issues. And I feel like it is unnecessarily causing unbelievable burden on our healthcare system. And there's no smoothing over those cracks. We need to get to the root cause and change our societal infrastructures to try to prioritize keeping people healthy.
Well, you would absolutely get my vote on that one. And I feel like we could probably have you back just to hold another episode just to talk all about specifics of food and sugar and what it does to us. But for now, I'm just going to say thank you once again for coming here. And I've certainly learned a lot today, and I hope our listeners have too.
Oh, Naz, thank you so much for having me. I loved our conversation. Thank you.